Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Biome, episode number 3, Nurturing the Ecosystem of Business, Body, and Living. So, the last episode, we had a chat about bodies and including your body in the creation of your business. I wanted to dive a little more today into the nervous system and the neurology of relaxation and the value of relaxation for creation. Um, Relaxation is actually, we talked about this on the previous episode. So if you'd like to hear more about this, I would dive into that one. Maybe go to that one first if you didn't listen. But relaxation is one of the most dynamic aspects of what allows a business to grow and thrive, and what allows the biome, the entrepreneurial biome, to grow and thrive. And it can occur in a lot of different ways. And we can, a lot of people have different ideas about relaxation, how it happens, and all of that, and what you need to do to get to relaxation. And sometimes that, you think of relaxation, you think, oh, I take a vacation or whatever. Do something like take a time out, let's just say. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into the neurology of it, because there's some really key pieces that I bring from the work I did as a trauma therapist that people don't really know about so much. And I always find that when I share this information with people, there's a lot of light bulbs that go off in people's worlds. And it's something I've been looking at a lot myself lately with my own body and my own entrepreneurial biome. And so when I was a trauma therapist, I studied a beautiful body of work called sensory motor psychotherapy. It was kind of an offshoot of Hakomi psychotherapy, and this was in the late 90s, actually, when I took this training. So it was quite a while ago. But the idea, so Hakomi psychotherapy was about body-centered, like really helping people to dive in, to their bodies in a very resourced way, to help them to explore kind of the terrain of their bodies as a way of tapping into what they could, how they could heal and how they could change, because the body has so much information about how healing can occur. There's a lot of cellular memory and neurological memory of past events and traumas that occurs that keeps us from being able to move forward in our lives. And so this work that I studied and then did for 13 years was all about going to the body as the kind of like the storyteller and the source for the unwinding of the whole system, so that people could live more, vibrantly, get out of PTSD, and, have more satisfying relationships, all the things that was, up in people's worlds. We would go to the body and go, hey, body, what's going on here? And it was a really beautiful way. For me, I felt very privileged to do this work. It was quite an honor every time to sit with somebody in that space and dive into this very intimate terrain with them of their body and their psyche, and unravel a lot of beautiful, deep things. So one of the things that was a part of my training and then a part of my work was learning about, and then learning how to work with the neurology of trauma, really. And I was trained as a somatic trauma therapist. And so one of the kind of basic tenets of this work, and this is what happens in our bodies, is we have this autonomic nervous system. You may have heard of it. You have one. And it's responsible for handling trauma. So when we talk about the fight or flight response, that's the autonomic nervous system. And it's comprised of two legs, let's say. There's the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system kicks in to high gear in the event of a trauma. And there's some beautiful work by Peter Levine, Waking the Tiger, a beautiful book by Peter Levine that we also use, I studied, as part of this work that I did, that, kind of goes into how animals handle traumatic situations. And it's interesting to look at animals because they don't have emotions. So they don't bring this whole emotional overlay to what occurs for them physiologically. And they have this ability to move to sequence the trauma out of their system a lot faster because they don't have a mind, they don't have thoughts, they don't have emotions. And a lot of times the mind and the emotions keep all of those aspects of our neurology locked into place so that we don't have a different possibility for something greater. But animals don't have that. So they go, and they have they're threatened. They deal with the threat. If they survive, they can relax and move on, and they don't think about it. They don't think. So we're more complex than that, right? So the sympathetic nervous system kicks into gear in the event of a threat. And the way that we used to look at it in the work that I did was this kind of like bell-shaped curve. So the sympathetic nervous system goes, escalates everything, high alert, high alert, high alert. That's the fight or flight response that we all know, right? So, peripheral organ systems shut down, like non-essential organ systems shut down. So like digestion shuts down. That's one of them. Your breathing might become more shallow. There's lots of unnecessary bodily functions that actually get shut down when the sympathetic nervous system kicks in to handle a threat. But in a natural situation, best case scenario, you handle the threat. Now the parasympathetic nervous system is going to come in, and it's going to take you from that heightened state of neurological alert, which is only meant to be a very temporary state in terms of the nervous system. And the parasympathetic nervous system is going to bring it on down, right? That's the relaxation. The rest of the organ systems can, get turned on again and kick back into gear, and you resume life and you go about it and it's fine, right? So, but in traumatic situations, that's not what occurs, because what happens is the sympathetic nervous system amps up the system. Your biochemistry changes, your neurology changes, everything gets high alert, high alert. And if you have a traumatic event in your life, literally it comes in and it cuts this off right here. So the sympathetic nervous system cannot bring you back to rest and relaxation. So what I worked with as a trauma therapist was this bell curve, and kind of reinstating what we called reinstating a lot of the traumatic responses and reinstating a reality in somebody's neurology, literally by having the body show us what was required. I can talk a little bit more about that, but through the body, getting to the point where we could access the neurological damage, let's say, injury, and do the healing where we needed to do it, so that you're not stuck in high alert. And it was beautiful. I still do this work sometimes with people that have a lot of trauma, where you go straight to the body. You don't go to the emotions, you don't go to the thoughts, you don't deal with that stuff because it's too overwhelming for people if you do. And you go to the body and you invite the body to start to actually move. Like there's a lot of involuntary movement that goes on in the body. Really fascinating stuff. So it's this unraveling. The body knows how to unravel itself, basically, if given the space and the container, and it has the trust, and it's safe to do it, and it's facilitated to do it, then it can. And it's beautiful to see in that work that people, their entire lives change. They have this capacity to rest and relax in ways that they haven't for years, like since maybe it was a traumatic event or a traumatic situation, whatever it may be. But we restore this beautiful ability of the body and the neurology to relax. And so that's a big kind of introduction to the topic at hand, really, which is, how do we get to relaxation in the whole biome, the whole entrepreneurial biome, so that we can have this like inspired, innovative, creative space of cultivating business, of working with our money flows, of working with our relationships and our bodies and all of that, and really, really facilitate a growth in your business and an innovative reality, a creative reality, a growth culture, all of those things that are sustainable, that are self-organizing, that lead to the thrival of your business, even more thrival of your business and your staff and whoever you work with, all the systems, right? Well, if you're on high alert, that's going to be very difficult to do. And so one of the okay, so with let's talk a little bit about trauma and PTSD, because it's important to understand that trauma and PTSD, and when I started using the tools of access consciousness, and bringing that to the work that I was already doing, I started to really see trauma from a very different perspective. And I also did, when I did my trauma training as a therapist, I was like, I don't have trauma. I've never been abused, blah 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 blah. I don't have trauma. Well, when I did that training, part of it was doing our own work, doing our own therapy, doing our own unwinding. There was so much that unwound from my system that I had no idea was in there. And so that was the first key of like, whoa, trauma is way more insidious than we think it is, and then when I started using the access consciousness tools, I realized, one of the things we say in that body of work is that basically, I mean, living in the world is essentially kind of traumatic, and that's not to make anybody a victim, or, it's not about that, but it's an acknowledgement of how many of us grow up as like acknowledge for the beautiful being that you are, with your body being honored and you being honored, and the adults around you, the world around you going, hey, beautiful creature, what do you know? What you got? Like, what are you bringing to the world? And I'd like to know what you know. And also given the space to really be ourselves. A lot of people are pigeonholed into what it is that their parents want them to do, or the world wants them to do. There's so many constructs in the world that dictate, kind of what we're supposed to want to do, that really kind of have nothing to do with us, but this isn't a conversation that most of us grow up with. So it's, we don't tend to find it until later on in life. Hopefully you do. And, for the lucky people, they do get introduced to a different possibility of, well, what's actually true for me, But living in a world that's going, I don't care who you are as a unique creature. You just need to be industrious. You need to go to school so that you can learn how to be an industrious member of society. You can participate, all these things. It's like there's no acknowledgement of your being and who you are. And I would say that there's a level of trauma that is like when your being is not acknowledged for who you are as a being, as a creature. When you're not acknowledged, there is a level of, I would say, like invalidation and abuse that that comes with that. And we all grow up with that. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's absolutely insidious in our world. There, luckily there's more conversations these days about being you, and what that is and what that looks like, and how you can be successful and thrive. A beautiful book I'd like to recommend is Being You, Changing the World by Dr. Dane Heer, one of the creators of Access Consciousness. Absolutely phenomenal book. Changed my life so much. So, but that's, and it was just a really different conversation about being you than I thought it was going to be. And it started to help me to see, wow, there's a lot of places where the world doesn't want to know who I am. I, as a result, don't want to know who I am, and I've tried to be the mom, the wife, the da 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 da. Well, so let's just use that as an example from my own life. I got divorced when my children were 1 and 3. They were, babies, and they were quite intense. My children are very intense. Can you imagine that my children are intense? I mean, where the hell did they get that from? Not me. Or their dad. So anyway, I was a single mom. When their dad also had custody, so we went back and forth. They went back and forth, but when they were with me, it was all me, and they were full on, and I tried so hard. And this was part of my entrepreneurial biome, like the care for my biome and the healing of my biome was some of the things that I chose as a parent, because I was so stressed out, and I had these 2 like Tasmanian devil children that were just like always bouncing off the walls and very energetically sensitive to the world around them, and they didn't know what to do with it. I didn't have the tools at the time to help them regulate. And then I got the tools, and that was great. I mean, I had some tools, but I was so stressed out. I was a single mom. I had babies. My body was really stressed out. I was exhausted. I didn't, I had a business. I had a private practice before, but when I had my babies, I kind of, I wasn't really working. So it was like, I need to, raise children, start a business, take care of my body, and I didn't have a lot of income at the time. And it was like, okay, huge amount of things I was trying to handle. It was incredibly stressful for me. And one of the things that I did was I basically kind of like abused myself into the belief that I really needed to be a perfect mother. And I needed to be there for my kids, and I needed to be, it needed to look like this and all these things, and that just was not how it was. That just wasn't that way. It wasn't working. It wasn't working for my kids. It really wasn't working for me. And I talked in the last episode about how our bodies give us all kinds of indications of where to go in our lives. Well, this was very much one of those moments that lasted a good decade. I worked with it for a long time. And it got better and better and better and better over time. But I wasn't including myself in the equation of my own life. I wasn't honoring my body. I was like trying to make all these things happen. And my nervous system was in this constant state of hyper arousal. And even with the amazing tools that I have, we have some beautiful energetic tools and Access Consciousness, the Access Consciousness bars, which is, I can't even imagine my life without the bars. It's these points on the head that you hold, somebody else holds for you, and you just relax and you let things just, it literally relaxes your brain and unwinds your whole world. It's very deeply healing for PTSD and trauma and unwinding of the nervous system. So that's one tool that I highly recommend. There's even a global bars day that happens every year. There's one coming up in about a month from now, but depending on when you see this, but you can look at, I think I don't remember the website. We'll put it in the notes for the show, but if you go to accessconsciousness.com, you can look up the bars and see if you can get your bars run somewhere in the world, or you can learn it, you can take a class. So that's one of the great tools that I added to my tool belt at this time, and it helped me so much unwind a lot of this neurological intensity and activation, and get to a different space of relaxation. And, fast forward many years and, technology and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and Twitter and LinkedIn and marketing and social media and that, this barrage of connectedness that isn't actually connectedness. And I will be doing an episode on technology soon. But this barrage of, the need to be connected, but in such a superficial way because it's not actual connection, and all these like being available all the time, and being on all the time and being able to be located all the time. And, one of my favorite things to do is to fly overseas. I do not get online when I'm on airplanes. I'm sorry, but no, I don't get online when I'm on an airplane. I love flying to Europe, 10 hours. I fly business class, I lay flat, and I get to just be in my own little zone. I am not locatable. Nobody can find me, nobody can text me. I love that. So that's really fun. And interestingly enough, it's been very, very tricky for me to institute that in my life. I'm getting better at it. We'll talk about that in another episode. I'm getting a lot better at it, but it's been tricky for me to institute that in my life as a, hey, I'm just going to not be on my electronics right now, but there's something about the barrage of all of it and the need to be on and that keeps our neurology up here. It keeps us in that sympathetic, activated, high alert state of affairs. And part of it is just the nature of technology. Part of it is, as entrepreneurs, we're creating income, right? And there's a whole PTSD universe that comes with money, that doesn't have to be part of money. But unfortunately, in this world, in our culture, and how things are in the modern age, money can be this massive PTSD universe, and it's kind of this like PTSD stimulant, that continuously, that's something we've played with in Access Consciousness, is like this idea of money as a PTSD stimulant, where the very thought of money like kicks something into gear, and it triggers that neurological zoop, here I am, high alert, got to make sure I survive, got to make sure I don't, I either need to fight, flee, or freeze. Those are the things that you do when you're in that sympathetic activation: fight, flee, freeze. I need to, I need to make sure that everything's gonna be okay, and if you're not creating, say you don't have enough profit in your business, or you're not getting paid enough, or you're not paying yourself enough, whatever that may be, it's very easy to hook into that PTSD universe of money, and we stay in that neurological high alert space. If we look at this from the perspective of the biome, that's like, the soil being constantly depleted, by, monoculture, or there's all kinds of ways that machinery, things like that, and chemicals, definitely, the preponderance of chemicals in the soil that depletes the soil and the ecosystem very fast and very dynamically. And then if you look at the biome from a like an agricultural point of view, factory farming, mass farming, it's sort of like, you have to, you basically kind of dig yourself into a hole where you have to keep doing it. This is what people think. That's not actually true, but they have to keep using their machines and their chemicals, and and because the soil is so depleted. If you want to watch a really beautiful example of how this can change, I think I'm going to mention this before. I'm sure I will mention it again because I love this movie, called The Biggest Little Farm. TheBiggestLittleFarm.com is their website, and it's a beautiful account of taking completely desertified soil, cracked, dry, no nutrients, nothing, no life, and turning this farm into this incredible absolutely thriving, phenomenal ecosystem that is very self-generating and self-perpetuating and um, like it gets greater all the time, on its own. And that's possible for us, but we've got to handle what's going on at a neurological level. Because if you're living up here at the top of that bell curve, you've got to create a situation, and we'll talk about this, but you've got to create a situation where you can actually have the parasympathetic dominance, I would say, where your natural resting neurological state is rest, relaxation. And the funny thing is that relaxation begets money and growth of business, which also begets relaxation. So it's a very cyclical thing, just as, when you plant you diversify the crops that you plant, the soil is going to get healthier from that. And the healthier soil is going to generate healthier plants, which generates healthier soil, and so on, and that's very simplistic, but it's kind of that's basically how it works. So how do you have that, the relaxation reality, and still, and have that be the thing that generates the profit and the increased income and the time and all of that. And this is also one of the big questions of this podcast and the big things I want to address with these conversations. It's because it's very, there's a lot of complexity to it and a lot of cool, not from a, like it's very complicated, but I find it just fascinating, how all this works. And so first of all, I would say you've got to choose relaxation you've got to prioritize it. Actually, you've got to prioritize it. And so take stock of your life and look and see, is this a priority for me? And one of the things I had to look at is how much time I was spending on social media. And then I was like, I don't even know what to do when I don't do this. Like I was trying to, spend less time on social media, and I was like, what do I do? Like, I had this moment where I was like, I was so plugged in that I was like, I don't really know what to do when I'm not doing this. Well, I was like, okay, a good half of my life, let's say, was technology free, the first, say, 25, 26 years of my life, pretty technology free, I mean, as a kid, there wasn't any of this stuff, and so I'm grateful that I've lived a lot of years without technology. I wouldn't want to live without it. It's not about throwing it away. But it was like, okay, how do I need to start to create a different neurological reality here for myself. And so I started to prioritize relaxation. I had to look and see what that even was. I had to find out. Turns out for me, it's a lot of movement with my body, being outdoors. I love to cook. Actually, I've never said that publicly. I used to say, "Oh, I hate cooking," but that's not actually true. That was when I was too stressed out to have that be something that I enjoyed. It was more of like something that needed to happen for my kids. Now it's something that I actually enjoy. So things like that, and I will go more into this in another episode as well. But I had to really start prioritizing, like what it was how I wanted to use my time, and start looking, at my business and going, okay, I don't have to be working all the time. That's not healthy, and it's also not required and it's not necessary. And anybody that's working all the time, I guarantee you there are things that you can cut out. There are things that you can, eliminate. There are things that you don't have to do, which stay tuned for more on that. But start to look at this and go, okay, what's your current like neurological reality, the state of affairs of your nervous system right now? Do you tend to be on high alert? If you do, get some, try the access consciousness bars. I would say that's um, just such a phenomenal way you get to like fall asleep. I mean, I always sleep when I have my bars done, and somebody just, puts their hands on my head for an hour, hour and a half. I, come out of the zone and I'm like a completely different person. I'm so much more relaxed. So that's a big piece for me. The access consciousness bars and body work in general. Different types of things, moving my body. So a lot of it, lo and behold, is about the body. Resourcing your body, resourcing yourself so that you can continue to find the de-escalation of your neurology into a different reality where you start to actually have more of a sense of peace and calm and relaxation. And even if you are very busy with the creation of your business, you've if this is something that you need to do, you need to do it. So you need to figure out a way to do it. I've spent a lot of time looking at my calendar and going, how can I get more kind of, more have more chunks here, and how do I work and things like that. I'll talk more about that as well in future episodes, is like, playing with your schedule, things like that. Deep Work is a great book I mentioned on the last episode. Helps me a lot, and Essentialism, those two books, really helped me start to get clear on how it was going to work for me to create my schedule. But the thing that I want to impress upon you and really emphasize here is that nothing, I mean, we all know this, but nothing occurs in your life without prioritizing it. And especially something like this, because relaxation is not a popular thing to choose. And I'm not talking about vacation, I'm talking about a deep presence with yourself and your own body where your nervous system actually gets to unwind from perhaps a lifetime of traumatic activation and just living in the world. That is not something that a vacation, you go to a vacation spot, lots of people, like that's not necessarily going to do it. And it might contribute, but it's more this day to day kind of, cleaning out and presence with and awareness of our neurology, tending to it, and making sure that we have the space to relax. And if you do not prioritize it, and if you do not fiercely protect it, and put it into your calendar and make sure that whatever is required, you're going to get to every single day in some way. If you don't fiercely protect that and prioritize it and kind of force yourself to do, I mean, I have to say, for a while I felt like I had to force myself, because I was carving new neural pathways and new choice pathways for myself. It won't happen. Nobody is going to make you do this, So, and the thing is, as you do, you'll start to see the biome change. You'll start to see your business go, like it'll become more spacious, and you might even see your money flows start to open up. This happens for me a lot, where the more I relax, the more my money flows increase. It's this really cool thing. The busier I get, the less my money flows. And I'm always marvel at that. So, and then, you start to create more money. Part of it is just the energy of prioritizing you and your body. That's a huge one. You're sort of telling the world and, the universe, if you will, like, hey, I matter. Me and my body matter. Relaxation matters. Peace matters, like true peace. a depth of stillness and presence with me and my life matters. It matters, but again, nobody's going to protect that for you or prioritize it for you. You need to do it for you. And as you do, you will see the whole biome change. Remember, you add to the soil, you amend the soil with amazing nutrients, organic yumminess, and the whole biome is going to change. But if you start with the cracked, desertified soil and you try to build the biome on it, it's not going to get very far. You've got to have some semblance of fertile ground for this to occur, and you have to choose it. So stay tuned, as I've said, because there's so much more coming on all of this. And these beginning episodes are sort of like laying the groundwork and giving you the lay of the land of where I'd like to, what this entrepreneurial biome is to me, and why I think it's so important for us to be having these conversations. Because it's so easy to get swept up into the frenzy, the PTSD universe of money and business and the world and marketing and social media, even when you're doing really great work in the world. And silence and stillness are so underrated, so delicious, and so something that if you don't create them for you, nobody will. And if you do create them for you, you will find your entire biome changes in ways that you couldn't even imagine. So thank you so much. I hope that was a contribution, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.